All right, and welcome back to another episode of Does It Hold Up? I'm here with our contestant Emily, and she is one question away from winning 20 million rupees. How you feel about that?
It's exciting as always.
All right, your final question is, what movie are we covering today? Is it A, The Departed, B, Slumdog Millionaire, C, The Devil Wears Prada, or D, The Princess Diaries?
Well, it can't be The Departed, since that's not streaming anywhere. I'm gonna have to go with Slumdog Millionaire. Final answer.
That's your final answer.
Final
All right,
answer.
let's lock it in. And you are correct!
Yes!
Woo! That's right, we're covering Slumdog Millionaire today.
Professors, doctors, lawyers, general knowledge walas never get beyond 16,000 rupees.
He's on 10 million.
What the hell can a slumdog possibly know?
I knew the answers.
All right, 2008 is when this movie came out. It seems like it was just yesterday, but also
A
really
lifetime ago?
Yeah, like it's insane. But it came out December 25th, 2008. Christmas movie. Doesn't feel like a Christmas movie.
No, nothing about it feels like a Christmas movie.
Not even slightly. But I remember watching this movie for the first time. But this was your first time watching this movie.
I also remember my first time watching it. It was yesterday.
Yeah, okay, for this pod. Got it. All right, give me some initial thoughts. It's so far removed that you probably don't remember the hype around this movie, but I'm sure you at least had known about it prior to this.
I knew the name of this movie. I honestly, I kept getting this mixed up with $1 Million Baby, I think. And so those two just always existed in the same realm for me. So I did not know what this movie was about.
Wow. Okay. Not even remotely close to a similar movie.
No.
Yes, they. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain why you.
They
would
both
get those
have
confused.
millionaire, like million, in the name. So.
No, they don't. Well, yeah, they do. Slumdog Millionaire.
$1 Million
Baby. I guess it's a stretch.
I know. So for some reason, it's always just that boxing movie.
I saw this movie about a week before the 2009 Oscars because I had heard the hype. Everybody was talking about it, and I was like, I gotta let it die down a little bit. I'm one of those people, like, if I don't see a movie right away and then there's a ton of hype for it, I'll wait until that all calms down before I see it because I don't want it to skew what I actually think about the movie.
Yeah.
So, like, I waited and I waited and I waited, and I was like, oh, you know what? I gotta watch it. The Oscars are coming up. I'm gonna watch the Oscars. I might as well check it out. You know, everybody's still talking about it, and it's probably not gonna die down anytime soon. So I checked it out, and I was like, okay, I get it. I understand why people are talking about this movie. It was a really different kind of movie. Not one that you normally see getting nominated for a bunch of awards for it to catch the zeitgeist the way that it did. That's more reserved for, as you can tell in modern movies, it's the superhero movies. You know, it's the big budget, huge spectacle avatars and stuff. Not this. This doesn't do that.
I was looking up the Oscars because I knew that it got Best Picture because that's kind of what we're going for.
Yeah, with the Oscars right around the corner, we figured, let's knock out some Oscar movies.
Yeah, so I knew it had won at least that. I did not know how prolific it was at the Oscars. And after watching it, I'm like, where's that Oscars? Where did they go?
Yeah.
Why don't they do that now?
Yeah. Well, they did a couple years ago with Parasite.
That's
true. It came in really heavy. But yeah, it's a way different time now than it was back then. But, you know, since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and get into it. This movie was nominated for 10 Academy Awards. 10. The next year, Avatar was nominated for, I believe, 11. So, this is almost on that same plane of a movie that we consider like the biggest triumphant filmmaking ever, almost. Crazy.
Yeah.
But here's the ones that it was nominated for. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Adapted Screenplay, Cinematography, Editing, Original Score, Original Song for Jai Ho, and Sound Mixing. It was also nominated for another original song called Osaya, and also Sound Editing, which is different than Sound Mixing. Those were all the nominations. The only two that it did not win was Original Song for Osaya and Sound Editing.
Well, it was never going to win all of them since two of them were for the same category.
Well, yeah, you can't win two original songs, but 8 wins. It's unheard of.
Looking at this list, it makes me realize why I knew the song Jai-Ho. Everyone must have been playing that song.
It was everywhere.
Because having never watched this movie, I knew that song.
What's crazy, though, is that song doesn't appear until, like, the end of the movie. It's
the end credits, yeah.
Yeah.
It's their little dance sequence at the end.
Which they just threw in for reasons.
Set in India.
Let's kind of talk about these real quick. So, it won Best Picture, which is the reason why we're covering it. And I think rightfully so. I don't remember a lot of the movies that it was up against, but this one made an impact. It stood test of time. I mean, you had other things in 2008 like Iron Man or The Dark Knight, but those weren't Oscar movies. Those are the ones that stood the test of time, but they weren't going to win awards, unfortunately. Best Director for Danny Boyle, who did Trainspotting, 28 Days Later, movies you've never heard of. Right? Am I right?
I've heard those.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Interesting. And he won. I don't know if this is the movie he should have won for. I think I would have gave it for Trainspotting if I was going to give him one, but that's okay. Adapted Screenplay, because this was based on a book called Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if you knew that.
I saw that in the movie. It shows it.
Oh, right at the end it does. Cinematography. The movie's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And not Hollywood gorgeous. It's like real world gorgeous.
It's definitely unique. I'm going to give it that.
Okay. Editing. I know that's something we're going to have to get into a lot later. You weren't a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
But apparently everybody else was. Original score. Music's beautiful. Original song for Jai Ho. It was everywhere.
Rightfully so. Yep. It's a good song.
And then sound mixing. Now, do you know sound mixing versus sound editing? I feel like this one is a really hard one. And that's why the Oscars got rid of it. They just do best sound now. It's like everything all-encompassing of sound. Mm. Because I think people just used to get confused.
I honestly, you've explained it to me like 3 different times, and I still could not tell you the difference.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
So, sound editing is more where the sounds are going to be placed, how the sounds are going to be created, how they're added to the film, where mixing is making sure that they are at the levels they need to be, that they work where they need to work, you know, and get that emotion pulled out. So sound editing, placing them in, sound mixing them, blending, getting them set into the movie. Does that make sense?
Still is confusing.
It is. It's very confusing. I'm so glad that they just got rid of it and we're like...
Best sound.
Best sound.
It's all that matters.
Yeah. And stupid action movies. Action movies always bother me when it comes to sound because they'll sit there and they'll go, hey, did you know that this is gonna... And you're like, oh my God. I just hold the remote in my hand and I'm just like up, down, up, down, up, down. I can't deal with it.
I will admit I had to do that a few times in this movie.
Yeah. Well, that's because I think they were supposed to be whispering at certain times or keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's impressive for a movie that had a very low budget and wasn't really expected to do much. In fact, this was meant to be a straight-to-DVD. Ooh. It was never meant to get a theatrical release. But audiences kind of warmed up to it, and screen test audiences were like, hey, we like this.
Probably put this out there for the general public.
And they changed their minds last minute, and they put it out, and the rest is history. All right. What does Sir Roger Ebert, he's not a sir, but, just it felt right. What does Ebert have to say about this?
He gave it 4 stars. Of course.
Of course he did.
And the quotes I grabbed from him were, "This is a breathless, exciting story, heartbreaking and exhilarating at the same time, about a Mumbai orphan who rises from rags to riches on the strength of his lively intelligence. The film uses dazzling cinematography, breathless editing, driving music, and headlong momentum to explode with narrative force, stirring in a romance at the same time."
Yeah.
He
nailed
was
it.
very descriptive when talking about this movie. The fact that he used breathless twice.
Trust me,
I
I
think he
held
was
my breath a
breathless.
few times watching this movie. I completely understand that.
Well, I definitely get the breathless editing bit. You never got a break.
Stops. It
Never
never
got a
stops. Okay. What else you got?
I have the current scores.
Yeah.
So Rotten Tomato critics have it at a 91%. Pretty dang good.
Yep.
Not only that, but the Rotten Tomato audience score has it at a 90%. They are pretty even.
Yeah, that's usually you see some kind of separation, but to be like right on top of each other, and
In the A's, basically.
yeah, that's crazy. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Do I agree? I don't know. You're gonna have to stick around to the end of the episode
We'll
to find
find
out.
out.
Maybe I'll rate it at the end.
Ooh.
Give it a percentage. I probably won't because I'll forget by the time we get
I
there.
feel like I'm going to hold you to that.
If you remember, because I won't. All right. So let's talk box office real quick, and then we'll get into this movie. The budget was $14 million. That's a low budget for an Oscar-winning film.
Yeah.
And for a movie that, wasn't supposed to do anything. Obviously. They didn't spend money on it. They were like, just whatever. Put it on DVD so we can get our money back. But this movie went on to make $141,330,703 domestically.
Dang.
Yeah, that is 10 times its budget.
Yeah.
Internationally, it brought in another $242.5 million. Yep, that's so much money. So total, it was roughly $384 million on a $14 million budget.
Hey, it shows you don't have to spend a lot of money to do great things.
If you just make a great movie.
Yeah.
You don't need Iron Man doing things to make money. You just have to make a good, honest movie that makes people invested, and then they're going to go see it more than once because they really love the story or whatever.
They want to see if they can find things sprinkled through.
Exactly. Adjusted for inflation, it would be about $174,362,983 because when this movie came out, ticket prices were roughly $7.50 compared to the $9.17 now. So, yeah, not that huge of an inflation. Only about another $30 million. But there's some movies out there that don't even make $30 million, so they'd take it. In 2022, so we've come to a consensus here that basically for this entire year, we're always going to compare to the 2022 theatrical market because it's going to take too long to get every movie out in 2023, and we don't know where all these movies are going to land. So we have enough movies that I could have slotted it in somewhere, but some of the movies just came out and they're still making a bunch of money, and it just wouldn't be as accurate. So
Not
we're
only
just gonna-
that,
yeah.
but you never know. The market might go crazy, and suddenly ticket prices are like $20.
Exactly. So 2022 is already done. Every movie's already come out. I mean, I know there's still some movies that came out that year that are slightly making money, like Avatar or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but I adjust for those as needed. So, in 2022, this movie would have ranked number 11.
That's
Adjusted.
not bad.
That's not bad for a movie that wasn't supposed to, because when you compare it to the movies that are right around it, it's even more incredible. It comes not just below. It comes about 15 million below Sonic 2. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 at number 10. Mm-hmm. But it beat out by $6 million Black Adam. That was supposed to be this big, massive DC movie, and it would have lost to a Slumdog Millionaire had it come out in the same year.
Don't mind my snickering.
Oh, no, it's okay. Black Adam's a terrible movie. In fact, we gave it, if you ever go check out our YouTube channel, you'll see We did our review for it, and we ended up, I think, giving it a B+, but we gave it that grade on initial watch. We put the review out, like, the next day. Yeah, the movie has gone down in quality since then.
It's not so much that it's bad, it's just nothingness, so.
Yeah, no, it's pretty awful as well. I think it was just the high of, like, Dr. Fate was so good. It was kind of a pretty movie to look at, and just, you were hyped up. And then you kind of sit on it a little bit.
You fell back to earth, like all those people that Black Adam threw.
And then once they got rid of the Henry Cavill Superman,
oh yeah,
I was just like, well, what was the point of that post-credit scene? I just don't care anymore. And every year passes, I'm becoming less and less of a Rock fan.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson is a terrible actor. Like, fight me on it. I don't care. I will never not think that. And the way he handled the whole situation and tried to, like, force feed numbers down reporters' throats to make it sound like Black Adam was making more money than it was, and it wasn't going to be a terrible loss for DC, really soured me even more. And so I'm like, I can't support that.
This is like multiple weeks in a row we've talked about The Rock and how much we don't like him.
Really?
We brought it up at least once or twice before.
That's hilarious. Okay, well, screw you, Dwayne Johnson. I hope you're never going to listen to this. But if you are, I don't care. You're not a good actor. Power to you for making all of the money and convincing people that your movies are good. You haven't made a good movie since, like, Gridiron Gang a decade ago, if not longer. So, Jungle Cruise was...
Don't even talk about that one. That one doesn't exist.
I can't wait for, like, 8 years from now when we're doing an episode on Jungle Cruise. It's going to be great. It's going to be so good. No. Anyway, can we get back to the movie we were talking about? Supposed to be talking about.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So, Slumdog Millionaire.
Yes.
That's it. That's what I got. That's all the numbers. That's the ratings. Start talking about the movie.
Go for it.
Oh, you want me to start? Listen. Okay. Let me just run through this movie real quick.
That's what I wanted you to do.
The opening is fantastic. And I'm talking about the first, like, 2 minutes of the movie, where they're just sitting in silence, and there's close-ups on them, and it's really intense, and you're like, I don't 100% understand what's happening, but I'm already engaged. Then, I absolutely love the premise of this movie. No, it's not, like, the coolest thing ever. It's like, oh, he's on a game show. But the way they intertwine all of these separate narratives into a whole story, and it's not, I don't know, you've watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Everybody's watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It was like the biggest thing on the planet at one point. But it was always, I need to think about this question for the next 3 minutes before I answer it.
Let me just talk through every option, even though I know the answer.
Right, like, what is Coca-Cola? Is it A, a horse, B, a car, C, a light, or D, a soda? And people would be like, well...
I know it's not a horse.
It might be A, but I don't think it's A because I know it's not a horse. We just answer the question. But you're sitting here thinking, okay, well, he's on a game show because Jamal, our main character, played by Dev Patel, is on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the Indian version. And it's that story right there. That's the main point of this story. He's playing on this game show. But he's doing really well at it. And they're starting to think maybe he's cheating because he's from the slums and he shouldn't be educated. He shouldn't know these things. So what we're getting is flashbacks to how he knows these answers. But they throw a nice little narrative twist into the middle of that because it's not him reminiscing about these stories while he's sitting on the chair answering these questions. He's actually in a police station being interrogated how he knows these answers because they think he's cheating. So there's 3 levels of story work going on here, and it never really gets confusing, which I think is just a testament to great filmmaking because it could have gotten easily jumbled mess.
Oh yeah. I know you've talked about it before where you don't like movies that change time periods, like multiple stories being told at one time because it can get confusing.
If you're going to flash back, I always say just do the first 15 minutes of your movie as the flashback and then pick up the story from there. I don't like this whole, like, I'm going to tell you a story for 15 minutes and then I'm going to flash back. And then I'm going to tell you the current story for the next 40 minutes. Then I'm going to flash back again. I don't like it. I think it's a weak plot device, a weak way of storytelling. But for some reason, I think it's okay in this one because of the way they have it playing out.
Yeah. So this one, for you to not be angry about it is really telling.
Yeah.
And it does such a good job of not only going back in time to tell you why he knows a certain thing, it's telling you the story of his life, and that just so happens to bring up why he knows a certain answer.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't, like, slap you in the face with it.
Like, hey, did you remember that the question was who's on the $100 bill? Well, let me slap you in the face with a $100 bill and spoon feed you how he knows this information.
Yeah.
It's just part of the story. It's like 2 lines of dialogue from another character, and then we just move on. And just, it plays out, and you're like, oh, and you gotta... Well, I think there was even a point where you were like, they're telling the story, that's how he got that answer. And I'm like, no. The next story is how he got that answer. Because that's how they do it. They don't... You pick up on it or you don't. It's one of the things I wrote down in my notes here. The movie doesn't hold our hand nor baby us at all. Either you got it or you're going to have to watch the movie again.
And I think the reason I got a little confused was they weren't always sticking to a specific method of get the question, start the story, find the answer, next question. Like, answer a question, next question. They switched it up every now and then of, like, he'd get the question, answer, and then we get the plot of how he knew that answer. And then sometimes it would be the get the question, see the plot, answer. So it kept it fresh, but it did confuse me a little bit on which one we were answering and what the answer was.
Yeah, and that's okay, because sometimes it's okay for movies to do that. I don't like when movies are, hey, do you remember when we said that thing 20 minutes ago? Oh, let me refresh you, and then here's why we said it. I don't need that. I remember what you said 20 minutes ago. I'm fine. Just play out.
Yeah.
And that's what I like.
It wasn't taking away from my experience of the movie at all. I just think it would make for almost a better second viewing, knowing what to look for in those little flashback scenes.
Yeah.
So.
And I think on a second viewing, you're not really going to get bored either. I don't think this is one of those movies, like, I don't tend to watch movies multiple times. Like, there's certain movies that I love that I'll watch multiple times. There's certain movies that aren't even like the best movies, but they're on TV and I have them on in the background. But there are those movies that I will sit down and I will watch more than once and I will pay attention to them. This is one of those movies. Is it the most complex narrative where you're like, oh my God, I'm so intrigued? No, it's just so well paced and so well told that you get engulfed into the story, even if you've already seen it. You're still like, oh my God, is he going to get away? And then you have to remember, wait, I've seen this movie already. Like, I know he gets away. We're literally watching adult version of this kid, so I know he gets away, and yet you're still like,
oh my God, what happened?
Oh, I can breathe now. He got away. Like, it's one of those movies that they did so well, it pulls you in.
That's fair. It was also, might I say, really well acted.
Ooh,
by
yes, it
all
was.
Generations.
Yes.
Because we get multiple age groups of the 3 main characters.
And I know you wrote them all down, so...
Well, I wrote most of them down.
Yeah, most of them. But you just brought it up, so why don't you kind of tell us who they were, who they played, and who they were.
Well, I got...
So our main character is Jamal. Adult Jamal is played by Dev Patel in one of his first ever big acting jobs. But we get Jamal as a child as well.
Yeah.
And who was that played by?
I might murder these names, but I'm going to try it. Ayush Mahesh Kedakar.
And he was the young.
He was the young Jamal. I unfortunately did not write middle Jamal, mostly because we weren't with him very much.
Yeah, he was in like 10 minutes of a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
What do you think? I thought young Jamal was really good.
Oh my gosh. I actually wrote that they held a lot of the emotional weight of this movie. Is so much happens when they are young kids that it's just like, how do you have these kids kind of like act these things out and make it so believable that you're like, I'm just watching a documentary at this point, right? Like,
Yep.
these things are actually happening to these kids. They were doing fantastic.
Well, I think in Ebert's review, not the quote that you pulled particularly, but I believe he also said something like it's very documentary style.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, he was mostly talking about how they show India.
Yeah.
The
Mumbai.
whole idea of half of your city is these really rich people and half of them is the slums. So it's like a documentary style that way.
Yeah.
But I thought it was so well acted that it also is kind of documentary style in that method.
Yeah, absolutely. And then his best friend growing up is Salim.
That's his actual brother.
Oh, it's his actual brother.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
sorry.
actually
That's
brothers.
my bad. They're actual brothers and best friends, and they grow up
Yeah.
together. His name's Salim, and who was he played by?
The older one was Medhir Mittal, and the youngest one, Adharudin Mohammed Ismail.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. So,
It was the first name that tripped me up. It's just a
Yeah.
lot of letters there.
and again, we apologize if we don't say any of these names right. It's not our native tongue. We've never heard them said out loud. We're just based on how it's spelled. We're kind of figuring it out. Great. Once again, those two together, like, wow. Okay.
And it is so crazy how well they portrayed, especially how the older ones will be, because we do get a lot of Dev Patel in it, and you can kind of see it's like, oh, this is how this kid is going to get there. Mm-hmm. But we do end up getting Salim's older self, and it's just like, wow, I can see that little seed that you put in there as a kid that you were willing to do horrible
Anything.
things,
Yep.
but not to your brother.
Yeah.
And I just think they did so well.
Except for one time. Except for one time. He definitely did something horrible to his brother when he took his brother's girl.
Well, that was, middle one. I don't talk about the middle one.
We don't talk about the middle one.
Just like
yeah.
a middle child, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. If my sister's listening, if the middle child of my family is listening, yep, she's talking exactly about you. Anyway, all right, who else did you write down?
I wrote down the older Latinka. Oh God, he said
Latika's fine.
Latika. He said her name so many times, and I still can't pronounce it. I thought she was pretty good, very pretty, by the way. Frida Pinto,
That was the oldest
one,
right? Yes.
yeah. Although I think her younger ones did amazing as well. I was just really struggling to find their names in the cast list.
Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time with them as
Yeah.
a kid or a teen.
I mean,
so.
her character unfortunately doesn't have a lot to her because she's just like the romantic interest, but
She's unfortunately, this is one of those. Here's the first flaw, big flaw that I have in this movie is the female is a plot device more than an actual character. She is there to further along Jamal's story, and that is it. She doesn't really have her own story. She never does anything outside of be rescued by Jamal, and
multiple times.
yeah, that's not the way to write in a female character. It's just not.
Dear Hollywood.
Yeah. They know. They're fixing it. All right, who else?
I have the police inspector. We get quite a few scenes with him of Irfan Khan.
Yes.
I love this actor. I've seen him in multiple things. Could I tell you what things? No.
He's one of those ones that, like, he's in movies, but you never remember he's there. You just remember that you like him,
Yeah.
which is a testament to his ability.
He is what Stanley Tucci used to be for me. I am a part of the Tucci gang. I love seeing him in every movie, but I forget he's in every movie because he's just so ingrained in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's this guy. And then just Prem, which is the host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire of Anil Kapoor.
Yeah.
I liked him so much. Even being the jerk that he ends up being, I liked him.
Yeah, he's got a nice little, I wouldn't say nice, a weird little twist to his character.
Yeah.
So he's just the host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you think that's it. Like, he's just the host, he doesn't really care, but he's the one that turns Jamal over to the police because he thinks he's cheating, after he feeds him an answer that's wrong.
Yeah.
And yet Jamal still gets the answer right. And then he completely flips a switch where it's just like, oh, you're a bad guy.
Oh,
I didn't see that coming at all.
Well, you didn't actually see it, but he was a jerk at the beginning, too.
I mean,
he's like, oh, you're the guy who gets coffee? Pfft, look at this guy. Ha.
Well, that's him playing it up for the cameras.
Yeah.
You know, that's not actually being a jerk. He's trying to engage and, tell a story, make him seem more like an underdog. So if he does anything, it's good. And if he doesn't do anything, he'd be like, see, told ya.
The actor did do a good job in his emotional scene.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I think you're going to make it.
Well, I totally believe
Sly
him.
face.
Okay, so there's that. Let's talk about that scene, because that scene just is so good. They take a break from the show so that they can clean up, blah, 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 before they continue. And they're in the restroom, and the host, Prem, is like, hey, Jamal, you're doing great. And Jamal's like, I don't know the answer to the next question. And he's like, yeah, you do. It's fine. You'll figure it out. And he's giving this really impassioned speech of like, it's destiny.
I was the only other person from the slums to become a millionaire. Like, I feel it.
But now I think you can do it too.
Yeah.
It's there. And that's when he gives him the answer. He writes it in the steam on the mirror. And then Jamal goes out and he force-fed him the wrong answer. And Jamal then changes his answer to be right. And that's when that switch happens. Because that's the moment he then gets shoved off to the police to be interrogated. And the police there aren't just like, sit you in a room. They're like, we're going to smack you around a little bit.
We're going to use a little electricity, torture, like...
Crazy. And he knows, and he put Jamal in that situation. It was just like, what a flip of the switch, where you're like, oh my God, he's giving this passionate speech about how he believes in him. Oh, nope, just kidding.
He didn't actually believe in him.
He doesn't want you to win.
Not
but
at
then
all.
He seems really actually happy for him at the end as well. So like he flips back a little bit. I don't know. It's
It could be
weird.
acting.
Such a great actor. What's really cool though is originally Danny Boyle wanted the actual host of the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Indian version to play that person.
Yeah.
They weren't available though, so he got Amil Kapoor, who was a contestant on the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, like back in 2005 or something like that. Or like early 2000s, whatever. He was actually a contestant. Walked away with like 5 million rupees or something like that. Like he did really well.
That's cool.
Probably what helped him launch his career into like an acting thing.
I don't doubt.
Yeah, that's interesting. What a tie-in right there. Yeah. This is another fun fact that I have that it fits in here. Danny Boyle did get one of the hosts of the show. So the guy who initially started hosting Who Wants to Be a Millionaire didn't finish the entire show. They got a different actor for a couple other seasons, different host. But, again, butchering names here, and I apologize. Amitabh Bachchan, who is the actor that young Jamal like gets the autograph from.
Oh, yeah.
When he jumps into the outhouse and he's covered in shit, and he goes and gets the autograph because he's so excited.
Yeah.
That's a real Indian actor who's a really big deal out there and was the host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for the first couple of seasons.
That is cool.
So he did get one of the hosts to come be in the movie, who's apparently a really big deal. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's easy enough to just make that person, like, come from a nobody.
Yeah.
That celebrity, because you only see him for, like, 0.2 seconds.
Oh, yeah. But
So.
it's fine. Yeah, he's in, like, one scene. But he pulls it off really well.
Yep.
Anyway, so, yeah. What else? What other things did you love or dislike about this movie?
I disliked the editing.
I know you did. You were shocked when they won an Oscar for it. So what was your problem?
I, like Ebert, said it was breathless, and unfortunately my version, not good. Mine is more like the asthmatic breathless, like I can't keep up, like too much is happening. I had to like look away for a little while because my head started hurting. It was just too much all at once, all the time, especially at the beginning.
Was it too much everywhere, everything everywhere all at once?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. Not only that, but the crazy editing along with the unorthodox camera angles and stuff like that.
Handheld camera.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of movement.
It gave me a headache. I was struggling to keep watching it at that moment, and it got slower as the movie went on, so I was much more invested then, but right at the beginning it was really tough.
Yeah, when they were kids, anytime there was like a chase scene or something, it was shaky cam, run, quick cuts, everything. Yeah.
It looked like a Marvel movie.
It's a little hard. It's a little hard to get through. One flaw that I had was I think we spent a little too much time with young Jamal. Although it was fascinating and the actors all did a really good job, more than 1/3 of the movie is about him reminiscing of being a child.
Yeah.
And it's like, so most of the stuff came from when you were like 7?
Pretty much.
Nothing really happened when you were a teenager. I know we get some teenager years, but not nearly as much as the other stuff. So it's like nothing happened in those years, and now you're here? It felt very uneven, where it was like, how did you get all these answers to all of these questions in the first, in 3 years of your life? And then nothing happened until you were on this stage.
I know, we get one last little cutback scene to him as a kid when his brother steals his girl, and then that's it.
Yeah.
That's all that we get for his life, and it's like, but that was years ago. Nothing has happened to you up until this point. Somehow you're suddenly getting coffee for this telephone company. How did that happen?
Yeah.
There's certain jumps in this movie that are just okay. Suddenly you guys are working at a restaurant.
Yep.
How did that happen?
And they all seem to happen within those teenage years, which I feel like just go by so fast.
Yeah. Which is, okay.
Yeah.
It's a little annoying, but we don't have to know every aspect of this person's life. It's not imperative to the story.
Yeah. So let's talk about, since we spend a lot of time with young Jamal, let's talk about his upbringing, because it's a very hard watch.
It's rough.
It's really rough. It's emotional and it's rough. But they're orphans who live on the street running around, and they get pseudo-adopted by this one guy who trains them or teaches them how to beg for money.
Yep. Beg and steal
And everything. And then it goes really far. So Salim gets recruited to be the head of the kids and tell them what to do and all this stuff. But then he finds out that this guy is purposefully hurting these kids to get more sympathy so they can get more money. We watch them blind a kid with an acid. It's rough. It's a hard just sitting in that moment, because then the guy's like, next up, go get Jamal. Go get your brother. Bring him in here. We're going to do the same thing to him. Thank God Salim doesn't. But talk to me about that.
He does get him, but forewarns him by using the thread of the Three Musketeers, being like, okay, well, when I say to run, basically run. Why he didn't just not come back and they just took off while they were waiting for him, I don't know. But that whole them being at that orphanage and having to steal money is a terrible scene. Before that, we get full-on child nudity, which is terrible, and I did not need to see that at all. So that whole sequence was just I think that's...
You say terrible, but what do you mean by that?
Oh,
it's
uncomfortable
a rough
to watch.
Or it's a terribly made?
No. Wonderfully made, except for the child nudity. Wonderfully made, just really hard to sit through. I mean, a lot of this movie has that in there where it's we're going to touch some really heavy subjects, but we're going to do it in mostly a tasteful way.
Mostly, yes. Nothing is ever really shown on camera where you're like, oh God, I don't, turn it off.
Yeah,
but there's so
grotesque.
many implications of what's actually happening that turns your stomach, and you're like, oh God, I didn't need to know that.
Because these kids are orphans, because we see their mother get killed.
Yeah.
At the same time, you see a person lit on fire. That's how hard this movie goes.
Yeah.
And it is hard.
So they escape, but then we get like the kid that got blinded, that we watch get blinded, which is gut-wrenching. One of the questions is who's on the $100 bill, and how Jamal knows the answers. Years later, he runs into that same, maybe not even years later, like a year later.
It's a couple. They've aged up at that point.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. He runs into that kid begging on the street still, and he's blind, and it's so hard to watch because you saw that happen, and the fact that he's still begging and nothing's changed for him, it hurts my heart. But then it's this great little exchange of like, he knows who Jamal is, even though he can't see. Like, he just knows his presence, knows his voice, and then he helps him find out where the girl went.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking. That whole moment for me is incredibly sad because Jamal is trying to live this life, and I just want to scream at the TV, like, take that kid with you. What are you doing? Just grab him by the hand and be like, let's go.
Yeah.
And you can't. And you know this kid's just stuck in this perpetual loop of wake up, beg, go home, get abused, wake up, beg, go home, get abused. And it's just going to keep happening. And Jamal could take him with him right then in that moment, but that's not the way the world works.
No, because he's already going to get enough trouble trying to get the girl.
Yeah.
And these are not people you cross. That's another aspect of this movie that you get is there are some people you should not cross. Because they will come and find you.
Yeah. And so he gives the blind child a $100 bill that he got from some tourists while he's been grifting, basically. And that's when they have this cute little exchange. It's when he learns that, you know, that's who's on the $100 bill. And it's also just painful because that kid could probably do a lot with a $100 bill. The exchange rate isn't great. The dollar is much more powerful over there than their own currency. Or no, it's not as powerful. Sometimes I confuse myself on the exchange rate. Basically, the 20 million rupees that he wins roughly equates to about 280,000 US dollars. So how much could he do there? I don't know. But to think that he has to take that money, go back and give it to this abuser instead of actually doing something with it for himself. Ugh. I can't. It's one of those scenes where I'm just like, tell me when it's over. I don't want to see it, but you have to see it because that's life.
Well, this is a euro. A euro equals 87.67 Indian rupees. And a euro is a little over $1.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So he just doesn't get to do anything with it, and that's sad.
No.
Anyway. So yeah, he has a much more buying power over there with a $100 bill. That's a lot of money. And he's doesn't get to keep it.
Any of it. Yeah.
Never. He's not going to get anything.
Hand it over.
Yep. It sucks. So here's a question that I have, and I want you to talk about different moments in the movie. But how did Jamal survive? How did he survive this movie?
Sure.
How did he get to being an adult? Because there's a lot of times he shouldn't survive.
Sheer luck. And having his brother there to do some unspeakable things for him. Basically.
So we already talked about that he almost got blinded and all that. Survives. Then they're grifting and they're selling stuff and they're stealing and they're on a train stealing from people. And Jamal falls off the top of the train while it's moving.
With his brother.
Somehow survives. Now, we get a great transition that I don't think I noticed before. But they're kids when they're on the train. They're the young versions of themselves. Then they fall off the train and they roll down a hill. And when they reach the bottom of the hill, they're the teenage versions of themselves. For a great transition. So good. But then that happens. Then he's being hunted by people that he wronged. Gets saved. He goes and finds the girl. The abuser guy from the orphanage finds them and is going to kill them, and he gets saved. And every time he just gets saved. He walks into a mobster's house as grown-up Jamal to save the girl. and fakes being a chef, a cook, and makes a really terrible sandwich.
Apparently.
And the guy gets really mad at him, but instead of being like angry and questioning him, like, you're clearly not a chef, what are you doing here? He just goes, you suck, get out. Again, he just keeps surviving.
Yeah.
How does he do it?
He is lucky, clearly, since all the questions that he was asked in the
He wants to
show
be a millionaire.
basically were a part of his life. Like, it's definitely sheer dumb luck. Or movie logic.
The script said so. Yeah, it's just, it blows my mind because I'm like, you should be dead.
Yeah.
Multiple times over at this point.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. I want to talk about the title. Slumdog Millionaire.
It's perfect.
What do you think? Yeah. Tell me about it.
I mean, it encapsulates everything that is about this movie. He is the slumdog. He's called it multiple times, and he becomes a millionaire. It's very literal.
Very. He wins 20 million rupees by the end, which is not a lot of money in US dollars. I mean, it's a lot of money, but not as much as it sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... So, back in 2008, when this movie came out, there was like a protest of it's a racially derogatory word, slumdog.
I mean,
And Danny Boyle was like, it's not, though. Like, he's from the slums. This was Danny Boyle's interpretation of the title. He's from the slums, so we get slum. And he's an underdog, so we get dog. So he's a slumdog. And I'm like, I get it, but I also don't get it at the same time.
Yeah, I figured it was a derogatory term, but that was the whole point, is that he's always been considered this thing.
Yeah.
And he's clearly much more than that, as a part by the millionaire by the end. So
I always tell you when we go see movies, like, seeing Iron Man. Listen, the movie's called Iron Man. If Iron Man's in it, the movie did exactly what it says on the tin. It didn't lie to me. It said it's an Iron Man movie. He's in it. This movie, it says Slumdog Millionaire. He's a Slumdog Millionaire. It says it right on the tin. I can't be mad at it. But would you change the title, or do you think that's the title of this movie?
I mean, I think that's the title of this movie.
Like, there's no, well, it could be called, or, no, like, if it was called something else, no.
I could not think of anything else, but then again, I don't know too much about Indian culture to know, like, any other way to say it.
Yeah.
So I think that one's kind of the way to do it.
You didn't want to call it, like, started from the slums and now he's here?
No, it's too long.
Come on, it'd be great. Then they could play that song. Well, if we remade it, they could play a song. It didn't exist back then, you know, started from the bottom. I think that's Kanye.
I think so.
I don't know. I don't listen to that music, but yeah. Yeah, I can't really think of another title either.
No, I think it works.
I don't know if this is a perfect title, but it's damn close. It's damn close. Talk to me about the relationship. I have a huge problem with the relationship.
With the girl?
Yeah.
Okay. It was very much so the whole idea of, like, love at first sight, or this is your true love, because there's no reason. Yeah, you want to make sure she's okay. Like, you got out of a very terrible situation with this girl, you survived for a while with this girl, and you think she let go, even though your brother was definitely the one to let go.
Y'all should have let go of each other and just went your ways.
Yeah, especially after the second time. Like, getting her out of that terrible situation, I understand. But once she's out...
The situation where she's basically what I believe to be an escort.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, a
That's
dancer until he gets enough money to make her an escort.
Right, she's a dancer that... She's a stripper, basically. Yeah. But she's an untouched stripper.
Yeah.
Until he can figure out how to get more money by allowing somebody to touch her.
Yeah.
Okay.
So getting her out of that situation, I applaud. But once the brother kind of took her and, like, they never saw each other again, like, that's the time to be like, okay.
Right, it's years apart and he's still... We had this whole discussion about unrealistic expectations for romance in movies a couple weeks ago. This is one of those ones where it's like, dude, you just let it go. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same, like, you can think about her, but he basically makes his entire life about getting to her.
And it's like, she could have come to you after that point. Like, I get not coming to you before that.
Yep.
But after that, she could have found you if she had wanted to. Instead, she got in with a mobster.
Yeah. Became a mobster's wife or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a big problem with it. I think the narrative structure and the story we're telling of this boy's life is enough to hold the attention of the audience. I don't think the love story adds anything. I think it actually takes away from my enjoyment of other pieces, because at the end of the day, it's all about the girl. So I don't even care. Oh, well, that's cool. But, he's not actually ever going to go do this thing or that thing because he needs to find the girl. It's all about the girl.
Yeah.
And I don't see the point of it. Like, you met when you were 6. You helped her get away from an orphanage. Then you and your brother went out and did a thing. Why are you still harping on her? Move along. She doesn't do anything for you. She's not like, every time she sees him, she's super happy, but it's not like she's sitting there announcing her love for him every time they meet. Like, you're the one for me. I can't believe you found me. You're the best. Oh, I was looking for you. No, it's all one-sided. It's him to her, and that's it. Why?
Are we rooting for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not. I am not rooting for this love story at all.
That is the whole plot point that got him on the show.
Well, because
he knew she'd be watching.
Yep.
And so he can be seen by her.
Great. But
great.
You had a job. You were kind of getting your life together. Yeah, you were just a dishwasher, but it's a step. You were going to do other things. You were going to... And then it all falls apart again because you got to get on this show. You get interrogated by the police and tortured because you like a girl?
Yep.
Dude. I hate it. I hate it. I can't stand the love story in this. It bothers me so much. Yeah, okay. What else?
I think this movie needed more ups.
More ups?
Good times.
Okay.
Because it is a very, like we said before,
depressing.
hard to sit through. I think we needed a few more moments of, the kids getting to just be kids, or teenagers being carefree-ish. Yeah. Something more to root for than just being your life stunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you could. I think the point was that nothing's ever gone right. Yeah. And now winning the show is the change in his life. So if we would have gotten anything good when they were little, and we do get some goods. One of my favorite scenes is the Taj Mahal, when young Jamal, is just waiting for his brother to come back, and he's standing by a sign that says guided tours, and this tourist couple come up, and they're like, when's the tour start? And he goes around, he starts telling them all this stuff, and he's making things up. He's just lying. He's flat out lying to them.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's not in the guidebook. And he's like, haha, yeah, they don't tell you everything. That was written by idiots. And it's such a cute moment. And he buys a camera and takes people's pictures so that he can sell back to them for, every time you go to a theme park, as soon as you walk in, they're like, take a picture. And you're like, oh my God, leave me alone. I hate those people.
I'll never buy that picture.
I will not buy that picture.
You want $20 for a digital copy.
I will literally just take a picture if I have to.
Yeah.
But we see that things are on the up, So we do get highs. They're just not as high as the lows get.
Yeah. I wish that I really wanted him to actually start learning things about the Taj Mahal and really bring people through, but it's fine, I said, as is.
That's one of the reasons I have such a problem with the love story. There are moments where you can see his life could improve. He could, make something of himself, get to a point of assuredness.
Yeah.
But he always sacrifices it for the girl. Let it go.
The fact that when they were working at the restaurant, he's like, I'm going back to this place.
Yep.
And Salim is like, oh, you're going back for her. We have something here, but you want to go back there for her. And it's like...
And that's what sets his life downward again because that's when they find her dancing. And in that moment, Salim kills the abuser. Puts a gun to his head and pulls the trigger. And just he ends it. And now they're on the run. And now Salim's gotten a taste of that lifestyle. And this is where things even take a worse turn. Because they rescue the girl. They go and they're partying. They're drinking. They're all this stuff. And the girl, Latika and Jamal, are laying in bed. And drunk Salim comes along, fights his own brother, threatens to kill him because he's going to go have sex with her against her will. Does not matter to him because he saved her life and she owes him. He's such a nice guy. Such a nice guy.
Not only that, that is when Salim goes in line with the mobster that
Correct.
she ends up with, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah. So it's just, that's where it's all downhill. And it's like, if you guys would have just stayed as dishwashers, you could have earned money. You could have gotten a place. You could have moved up. You could have trained. You could have started an actual life, but he risked it all. And that's where I think this movie really falters is you want him, you want to root for him.
Yeah.
He's had a really hard life. You want him to succeed. So when he starts succeeding, you get really excited. And then it all falls apart again. And it's always for the same reason. And that's kind of the moments that I get taken out. I'm just like, let me know when it's going good again, because who cares?
Yeah.
Yep. What else do I got? I have... Oh, let's talk about the ending.
Okay.
We kind of figured out how we get to where we're going to get. So, Salim works for the mob guy. And he's basically brought Latika to the mob guy. And Jamal saves her again. And they're running through a train station so they can get away. And Salim and other henchmen catch her, bring her back. And this is what sets them off the path to get to the show, blah, blah, blah. But at the very end of the movie, she's watching Jamal on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Salim sees it and helps her escape.
Yeah.
But not only helps her escape, she's like, he's never going to stop coming after me. And Salim says, don't worry about it. I'll take care of him. Gives her a cell phone, gives her a car, sends her on her way. He hides in the bathroom with a bunch of money for some reason.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really make any sense. But I guess if you bleed all over the money's no good anymore. So, I mean, it's hard to wash out blood. So the mob guy's really pissed. He finds out money's gone. He finds out the girl's missing. He breaks in. Salim just shoots him. Mob guy's dead. Now Salim sacrifices his own life because all the other henchmen just open fire on him and just end him.
Yeah.
What do we think about this sacrifice? Was it warranted? Was it earned? How did we feel?
I don't think it was really necessary. Like, it was and it wasn't. Because Salim at that point had been so horrible that you needed something to redeem him. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, there's like 6 other ways that you could have handled this. And,
Right, like you might have been able to get away too, because when he's setting this all in motion, the mob guy's in a different bathroom all by himself talking on the phone.
yeah.
Salim could have just walked in there, opened fired on him, and then took off and maybe escaped.
Yeah.
It's a really weird sacrifice. I think it somewhat works to redeem his character, but at the same time, I'm like, you've done so many nasty things. This one thing doesn't really matter all that much. Again, it's also because I hate the love story. So them ending up together is just like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? And then he makes his phone call. Okay, so this pisses me off too. The last question is the question about the 3 Musketeers, which has been a through line throughout the entire movie, that they don't know who the 3rd Musketeer is.
Yeah.
Because it's just him and his brother. They don't really have a 3rd Musketeer. So that's why they never learn the name. So that's what the question is. Who's the 3rd Musketeer? And he doesn't know it. And he's like, well, I'm going to call my brother. And it's like, first of all, your brother doesn't know it either. That's the whole point. But at least he says, I have to call that number because it's the only number I know.
Yeah.
And who answers?
Latika.
She answers. Yep. And she's like, yeah, I have no idea what the answer is. And he's like, well, where are you? She's like, I'm safe. You're like, okay, whatever. And then he somehow still gets it right. He hasn't known this answer the entire movie. Am I supposed to believe that he just guesses it? Also, what a waste of a phone call.
Well, might as well try.
Sure.
It's your only lifeline left.
Yeah. It just... And then he like immediately knows where she's going to be and runs to her after he gets the question right. And it's like, but she never told you where she was going to be. So that's just plot convenience that you found her.
It was the same train station.
I don't care. What signal did they give on the phone call to warrant meeting there?
That was the only place they thought to meet.
But they both thought it in the exact same moment? No.
Yeah.
But he gets it right, and he wins. Yay!
Yay.
The ending doesn't work for me at all. I don't like them ending up together. I don't like that he won. He's, I get he has to be a millionaire by the end. That's Slumdog Millionaire. But it also could have just stood for Slumdog Millionaire. He's on the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show. It didn't mean he actually had to win.
Yeah.
Did you like that he won?
I did. I didn't expect it. I thought it was going to pull out the rug at the last second. But I was just like, come on, just let him win. He needs something good in his life.
Fair. What'd you think of the ending? Them getting together?
I didn't really care at that point. Like, I'm with you. I don't really care about the romance so much, mostly because her character is the nothingness of a character.
Yeah.
So them being together at the end, I was like, okay.
Yeah. I wish his story would have just been him getting to be a millionaire, not him getting the girl.
Yeah.
Listen, dude, you're a millionaire. You can have whatever girl you want now.
You're a millionaire. Now you're suddenly helping out the slums so that no one else has to go through what you did.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Something like that.
Speaking of helping out the slums, here's a fun little fact. The director, Danny Boyle, for all the kids that were in the movie, he took majority of their salary and he put it in a trust fund that they can get when they're 16, so that way, like, it wasn't taken from them.
Yeah.
And the Indian authorities, with the help of Danny Boyle, actually got any of the kids who were living in the slums out and put them in houses.
Oh.
And the condition for them to get the money when they turned 16 was they had to finish school. Mm-hmm. And so the production company and Danny Boyle, and again, this is half-assed internet research, so I have no idea how accurate this is, but I'm sure you can find it pretty easily and read stories about it. He set up transport from when filming finished to the year they were 16, transport to school every day, to and from school every day, so that they would finish school.
That's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's how you make changes. It's not changing for everybody, but if you can make a change for just a couple people, they can turn around and make a change for other people, and you start this whole cycle of making change instead of just leaving everything status quo.
Yeah.
That's just cool. And I like not giving them...
You don't have to do them everything.
Yeah.
Just a little bit starts a
You don't
ripple.
have to spend $20 million and get everybody this and that, but doing it for a few is the start.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? That's kind of cool, right?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories like that.
I would support this movie just for stories like that. All right. You got nits?
I do have a nit.
I don't have any.
My nit is it's super lucky that the questions went in order of his life.
Yeah, that's fair.
We never had to jump back and forth. It was
Thank
just
God for
kid
that.
to adult.
Yeah.
How lucky.
Well, yeah. Well, lucky and lucky not, because we don't hear every question. There's 20 questions. We don't hear all of them. We only hear a select few. So it could just be that we're only hearing the ones that fit narratively into his life.
Yeah.
What else?
That was my only.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, I got some questions here.
Okay.
Okay, so I know you're a huge sucker for blooper reels at the end of movies. It's
Yes,
like
I
one of
am.
your favorite things. Dancing closing credits or blooper reel closing credits?
Blooper reel.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't like the dance?
I like the dance, but I prefer bloopers.
So you would have rather a blooper reel of this movie?
Probably not of this movie, though. To be fair, it's too hard of a movie to go and do a blooper reel for.
Yeah,
Be
absolutely.
like, oh, it's the burning
but they
of the
went
eyes
to-
out scene, but haha, I sneezed. Like,
But dancing is A-okay.
Yeah, the dancing was fine. Well, because it's all happy now.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's just weird. What else? Do you remember the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire craze? when that show was like the biggest thing on the planet and like everybody watched it.
Yeah.
And then the guy who won $1 million for the very first time got like the easiest questions ever because they just needed somebody to win it.
No, I don't remember that.
Really?
I didn't watch it a lot. I just knew that it existed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have good cable back in the
Gotcha.
day.
Yeah, it was like craze, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, who's gonna win? Who's gonna win?" And it was like the end of the first season, which was weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and nobody had even really come close. We got like a 200,000, and that was about it. And then the guy who ended up winning it, he called his dad on the very last question to tell him he was about to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
He didn't even
do remember
help
that.
with that.
Yeah.
But it was like these really easy questions. Like I remember it being a whole thing afterwards where people were like, "Yeah, I knew almost every single question that he got." Like they set it up for
Are you
somebody
thinking
to
that
win.
they did this for this guy? Because definitely the producers were like, yeah.
Good job. Maybe.
I could see it.
It was just such a weird craze. It always fascinates me when like TV shows, and whether they're game shows, TV shows, doesn't matter, when they like completely take over for a little bit of time. Stranger Things did it when it first came out. Game of Thrones did it for a couple years. Tiger King did it for a whole summer. And then you go to game shows and it's like Deal or No Deal. It was the biggest thing on the planet for a while. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The Weakest Link. Yeah. These were all like
Survivor.
Yeah, they just crack me up when they just take over. And Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was the weirdest thing because I'm like, it's just trivia.
Yeah.
And we're just watching. Nothing's actually happening. It's just ask a question, answer it. Ask a question, answer it.
I mean, it's easier than Jeopardy. Like, come on.
Yeah, but Jeopardy, at least you're going against other people.
That's what I'm saying.
It's gotta be quick. You gotta... Yeah, like, I didn't understand why this particular show just skyrocketed because nothing happens in this show. It's just, it was Regis Philbin, contestant, answer questions.
Yep.
Yeah. Super weird. Big weird craze. All right. That's all I got. That's all I got for questions.
Yeah. I didn't actually have that many questions for this.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, hot take?
My hot take is that he probably should have lost that final question.
Okay.
But I guess it's not all that hot of a take since you already brought it up.
It's funny though. My hot take is the same thing. He shouldn't have won at the end for two reasons. One, he didn't know the answer. Like, he had a 25% chance, which, fine. But the fact that he got it right just blows my mind. But also, we kind of had this conversation a little bit before we did this pod, but the mafia guy's killed. But that's not to say nobody else in his organization wants this girl back. She probably knows things she's not supposed to know. And they're going to try to find her. He's now a celebrity. We see him getting mobbed in a taxi. People knocking on the door, knocking on the window, screaming that they love him. Well, he's in the middle of playing the game. Now he's won. He's a millionaire, celebrity. There's going to be pictures. They're going to find these two and kill them. This is not a happy ending. At all.
Yeah. Halfway through, I was like, what do you want to bet he loses the final question but gets the girl?
Yep. Nope, he got both.
He got both.
But not for long. Unless they take all of that money and find a way out of that country, they're dead in like a week. Yeah. And that's it. Not a happy ending. This is something I do with movies. I always think about what comes next after the movie. Because it's like, oh my god, that was such a cool ending. Or especially like my favorite genre is rom-coms. And they always end up together. But I always have to like question it. Because I'm like, but what happens next? Yeah. Like, you guys had this weird adventure together, but what happens? Can you guys exist as just like a normal life together? You guys gonna like move in? You guys gonna get married? You guys, what's gonna happen next? And I always think about that. And like, so this movie, I'm like, they're super happy together for a week, and then they're on the run again. And if they get caught, they're dead.
Yeah. Well, maybe they can afford security now.
$1 million doesn't go as far as you think it does. Yeah. You got to buy a place to live. You got to buy, the money's not going to last. So you got to get a job. Yeah, you're going to pay security, but what? You got to get like 2 dudes, pay them like $50K a year. Like, you got to pay them more than that. Security costs way more than that. So, I don't know. It's just weird.
Yep.
Just weird. Here's one more fun little thing that I didn't bring up earlier because I completely forgot, but I want to bring it up now. So, in the closing credits, so the song Jai Ho was choreographed by a person named Longinus Fernandez. And their name is not in the closing credits at all. They completely forgot to put them in there. And so that the choreographer decided not to attend any premieres because out of protest of like, I'm not even in the credits. I did work on this and you didn't give me anything. Like, what?
Yeah.
And then Danny Boyle found out, the director, and he was also pissed. But there was nothing you could do. The movie's already out. You're not going to go back and edit one little name in, unfortunately. So during his Oscar acceptance speech, he set aside like a good 40 seconds to thank and apologize that person and talk about their meaning to the movie.
Aww.
And I was like, oh, heartwarming. That's fantastic. That's a great ending for this kind of movie where it's like bad things happen and then you get a good ending out of it. You know? I don't know.
Well, they could definitely alter it for the streaming version. I mean, they've altered Ellen Page's name to Elliot Page and everything that she's been in.
Yeah, I think they probably did, but this was back when it came out.
Yeah.
Just interesting. There's also, if you ever look up on IMDb, and I don't know the person's name, there's listed as a co-director, a woman listed as co-director, and it says for the Indian shoot, for the India shoot, but they weren't actually a director. Danny Boyle did everything. Yes, there was a second unit director, but that wasn't the person. But they got a co-directing credit. They were like a stylist and something, but she's Indian. And so Danny Boyle said, hey, we're doing this movie, come help us out, we need clothing, we need blah, 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 blah. And she was doing it, and she said, hey, do you know what would make this movie really special? And this is out of her own mouth and Danny Boyle's mouth, that she presented the idea of, you should do part of this movie in Hindi. And it was going to be all in English. And she was like, no, do part of it in Hindi. It'll mean more. And then 20% of the finished product is in Hindi. And it was all her. It was her idea. Not only that, but then Danny Boyle said, okay, well, can you write some Hindi dialogue? Like, here's what they're going to say. Can you, translate it into Hindi and, change it if it needs to be changed and blah, blah, blah. So she ended up writing most of the Hindi stuff as well.
Huh.
So Danny Boyle gave her a co-director credit.
That's cool.
He's the official director. Hers is just a title. It doesn't actually mean anything. She's not going to get credit for being a director. But I thought that was, again, just Danny Boyle. Nice guy.
What did you think about a quarter of the movie being in Hindi?
I always like that, though, because I don't like when it's like, oh, we're in Germany, set during World War II, and 3 Germans are talking to each other, but it's in perfect English. I'm like, but why? Have them talk German, put subtitles, or here's my preference. Don't put subtitles and let the words and their actions speak for themselves. If I can figure it out, great job. But if you have to spoon feed me and say, here's what they're saying, it's not as good. I'm a fan of just speak and let me work out what's being said.
I struggle with that, but
it's not for everybody.
I both liked and didn't like the Hindi in this movie. I liked that they used it. I didn't really care for the subtitles or the titles that were somewhere on the screen.
Yeah.
In a weird little text bubble.
Yeah, sometimes so those text bubbles, they moved around the screen a lot based on what was happening, and they had different backgrounds at times, so it got a little confusing about what I'm looking at exactly. So I'm not the biggest fan, but it never bothers me. Especially if you rewatch this movie, you'll find yourself not even paying attention to those because you know the story, you know what's happening, that you don't have to read what's being said.
Yeah.
It just happens. And it's cool. Yeah, I'm good with that. So, subtitles are hard for me. I'm not a huge fan of them just in general, especially when people try to get tricky with them. And I'm like, no, just put it at the bottom of the screen. Basic, boring, who cares?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm not a fan of them either because they go so quick and I can't read them fast enough.
Yes, if you're a slow reader, subtitles are not your friend.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? Some movies they need it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I can sit there and I can figure out what's being said. Because I'm a movie person, stories all follow the same basic concept, you figure it out. But other people might not be able to. They want to know what's being said.
Yeah.
So you got to take the good with the bad. Anything else you want to say before we go into awards?
No, I'm ready to go into awards.
Let's do this. Award time. Let's start with the psycho shower scene. Your favorite scene in the movie. My favorite scene in the movie was a scene we've already talked about, and it was a rough scene to watch, but it was rescuing the girl, Latika, while she was dancing. But particularly after they've already rescued her and Celine pulls out a weapon. It's a very tense scene. It has me on the edge of my seat every time, no matter how many times I watch it. It gets me invested because I keep rooting in my head of like, no, Celine, don't do it. It's going to set you down a terrible path. Just leave. Just take the money and go. And he never does. And I think it's just such a well shot, choreographed, and acted scene. And that's the moment that the movie completely changes for me moving forward. That's my scene.
At the same time, I'm like, yes, do it.
Yeah, right? Like, that's the hard part. You don't want him to do it because of what it's going to do to him.
Yeah.
But you want him to do it because of what it's going to do to the other guy.
Yep.
To the abuser. That's why I love that scene. It's, you got to take the good, again, got to take the good with the bad. And it's just, every time you watch it, it's going to get you. What do you got?
My psycho shower scene is Jamal figuring out the host is giving him the wrong answer.
Okay.
And responding with the other answer.
Yeah.
Like, it is an interesting moment to watch him kind of figure it out. Like, he's playing along with it, and then he figures it out, and he's like, yeah, no. And he goes for the other answer. And how the host is just like, you sure it's not B? Like, you sure? and Jamal's just like, yep, I'm sure. Jerk.
100%. Again, it's one of those moments that completely alters the course of the movie going forward, because that's the question that he then gets taken to the police and interrogated because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great scene. One thing that bothers me about your scene, and let me know how you feel, is, so he gives him the answer, the fake answer. He's answering it. He's questioning it. He uses a lifeline.
Yeah. He didn't actually know the answer. So might as well use the lifeline. So? Yeah.
Okay.
Might as well use the lifeline to, like, help yourself out as much as you can.
Right, because then it was B was the answer he was fed, and D was the other answer he could give.
Whereas the 50-50 could have gotten rid of the B, and he would have known for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
That's good.
I don't mind it.
It just always was a question to me where I was like, I wonder why he uses it there if he knew for sure B wasn't the answer. Did he know the answer? But I guess if he didn't, it helped him out.
Yeah.
That's because the reaction by Emil Kapoor playing Prem, the host.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Oh, yeah. You can see just his anger and his, like,
right.
No.
Because he has to do all the anger in the eyes because he's currently on TV.
Hosting.
He cannot falter and be like, I'll kill you. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, oh, intense.
Oh, yeah.
Intense. All right. Next up is the
life finds a way
award for your favorite line in the movie. Go ahead.
Mine is,
welcome back to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Just the way that guy says it is so funny, and I love it every single time. Like, he says it multiple times in the movie, and every single time I'm like, yes, say that to me more.
Yeah, it's great. It's iconic. You know, it's Regis Philbin never did that when he was hosting. He was never like, welcome back to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
He was just like, hey, you want to be a millionaire?
Yeah. Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just the accent or if he added, like, if he went thicker with it or whatever, but I would watch that show just for him as the host.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear him talk, like, all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Every time he brought out the Hindi for Lock It In, it got me.
So good.
It so much.
So good. Like, I know he's a dick in the bathroom when he's giving him the wrong answer, but I'm just like, you believed him, right? So this is the first time you've seen it. Did you believe him?
I was a half believe, half not believe. I was
Yeah.
like, I want you to be good, but something tells me you're not.
Like, his voice just screams, believe me.
Yeah.
But then his mannerisms scream, I'm lying.
Yeah. So he
so,
does
yeah.
really good.
His voice is just, oh, it's so good.
What about yours?
Mine is at the very beginning of the movie when the opening credits are rolling, it asks you a question. And the answers are like something, something, something. But the answer D says, it is written.
Yeah.
And you're like, what does that mean? It's part of the script? Okay, yeah, of course it's written. It's a movie. But then that exact line comes back multiple times in the movie. One time, in the bathroom scene with the host, when he's giving him the answer, he says, I know you're going to get the answer right.
Maybe it's written, my friend.
In that moment, I was like, oh, all right. And that line is what made me think he was giving him the right answer. Mm-hmm. You know, because it is written. You're going to win. But then it takes a whole new meaning when it's the wrong answer. When Jamal answers it correctly, the host is clearly frustrated and questions him about it. Like, how'd you know? And Jamal answers,
Maybe it's written, no?
and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, throw his words back in his stupid face. I love it so much. So you get like the negative connotation of it is written. You get the cocky connotation of it is written. Then at the end of the movie, when he gets the girl, even though I don't like that, he tells her they're meant to be together. Why?
It is written.
It is written. And now that exact line takes on a third, more impactful meaning. And then it shows that opening question again, erases all the answers except for, it is written. That's my line. It is written all three ways. I love it.
Wonderful.
It's three simple words that mean absolutely nothing
And yet,
until they're
everything.
said, and they mean so much. That's my line.
I like it.
Yeah. All right, next up, the Han Shot First Award for the thing that holds up the worst. Go ahead.
Tourists.
They're all idiots.
They're all idiots. I specifically
been a
put American
tourist.
tourists, but yeah, that we get multiple tourists and they're all kind of just
I
terrible.
think like the first ones that offer him money to give a tour, I think they're like Danish or something.
I thought they were German.
Ooh, maybe they were
They
German.
sounded very German.
Something in that realm.
So you get that. You get a couple others like Chinese and
The Americans.
who were the only ones to be like, well, this is how Americans do it.
That was my runner-up for my Life Finds a Way award. Is when she says, "Well, now you're getting a bit of America." And I'm
Yeah.
just like, "Oh my God, I can't."
And that's
with
who
this.
gives her the $100 bill. So
It's so dumb. It's so. Yeah, but the best part about it is that's exactly what Americans would probably say.
100%.
There's those certain Americans out there who are like, the American way. I love it so much. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry. What was your answer again? I'm distracted
Tourists.
now. Tourists.
Tourists hold up the worst.
Or, in case of that scene, the best. I love that moment. Sorry, I'm yawning over here from laughter. Okay, my Han Shot First award goes to the abuser.
Oh, yeah.
Get out. Just go.
Don't exist.
Don't exist.
And the fact that people like this do exist.
Yes, that's more or less what the biggest problem is like, okay, the mob guy's bad. It's fine. It's like that, again, he exists, and he's not terrible. Like, he
doesn't-
gives her things or whatever. He's just physically somewhat abusive, but it's more just like he hits her. This guy's torturing these kids, blinding them, taking out their eyes, cutting off fingers, whatever he has to do to get sympathy for the kids to get more money. And it's probably the hardest part of the movie to watch for me. And it doesn't hold up for me just because it's too much.
Yeah.
It goes a little too far. Again, a lot of this movie is based on implications. We don't actually see what's happening. It's just implied what's happening. But this one goes beyond that. It just straight up is like, this is what's happening. Deal with it.
I think the major difference between those two bad guys is the mob guy is doing stuff to adults. He doesn't touch children.
That we know
Once
of.
you, well, I mean, they had children run into his car and he did absolutely
Oh
nothing.
yeah, he just kind of like smiled and
like,
got
okay.
mad and then just waved them on.
So for the other guy to do that kind of stuff to children and then expect those children to then work for him for like ever.
Yeah, like I get things like that exist, but there are certain things, we had a PSA a while ago about like throwing up, which is a jokey thing of like, I don't need to see people throw up in a movie.
Yeah.
I have a big thing about like, I don't need to see sexual assault in a movie. Like it can be implied without showing it. You're never going to get the reaction you're actually looking for. I just fast forward through that stuff. There's no point to it being in the movie. This is one of those things where I'm just like, the movie doesn't change if we don't show. If we allude to this man existing, we see him with like teaching them to sing and blah blah blah, and then we allude to the fact that he's actually abusing them, hurting them, blah blah blah. It still plays out the same way.
Yeah.
And so showing it doesn't work for me.
Fair.
So I would just take it out.
Fair.
All right. Last up is the Paul Rudd Award for what held up the best. And my answer is young Jamal. That kid made me feel all sorts of things. Like, I was happy for him when he was happy. I was angry when bad things were happening. I was sad when he was sad. Like, and that's all on him. Yeah, the story plays a big part of it, but without his emotional connection to the story, it doesn't work. It wouldn't have made me feel anything. That kid was so damn good. The fact that like he didn't get a nod for best supporting actor or anything, mind-boggling.
The Academy doesn't like children.
I mean, they've given awards to children before for like Bad News Bears and stuff like that, or the Leon the Professional. But yeah, they don't normally do it. But this is one case where I'm like, you should have done it.
Yeah.
The kid is brilliant. I don't know what he went on to do, but he was brilliant in this movie.
Yeah.
What's your answer?
My answer is the storytelling method. Like, I've seen other movies do something like this. They don't always work. This one worked beautifully. I love the idea that it's set in this time where it's like, I have to explain how I knew these answers from this show. And so here's the multiple layers of me explaining that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just done really well, and it was really interesting to watch.
Agreed. A huge fan. Obviously, I brought it up earlier as well, the narrative storytelling, the way they thread things together.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm not going to argue. Love it. All right. Final decisions.
Okay.
Let me go first.
All right.
This movie's a hard watch. It really is. You're going to experience a lot of highs, but even more lows. And I think that's purposeful. The problem is, it's one of those movies that I think majority of people are satisfied just watching once. It's not something that you need to revisit unless you're a big movie fan and you really want to just see something well made. And that's a tough sell. Personally, I can watch this movie because of how well it's made, how gorgeous technically and well acted this movie is. So for me, it holds up, but it's not as clear cut as I thought going into the movie. Before watching it for this pod, I was like, this movie's gonna hold up. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
And then I watched it and I was like, maybe it doesn't. Maybe people watching it for the first time in 2023 or 2030 or 2040 as time goes on won't be as connected to this movie as people who saw it in 2008, 2009 were. And so it does hold up, but it's not as much as you think. And just to wrap up, bring it all back around full circle, if I was rating this movie, 84%. I don't think I can get into the 90s, but I don't think I can go lower than 80 either. So I think like a mid-80s probably the best number for this movie. You're up. What do you got?
As someone who is watching it for the first time in 2023, it holds up. It's a very interesting story. It's wonderfully told, wonderfully acted. Everything about this movie works. It is a very hard movie to sit through, but is it one that I'd watch again? Yeah. Is it one that I think more people should watch? Yeah. I think this movie holds up really well. So
Wow.
I give it a definite holds up.
Well, okay.
I don't know if that I'd give it a 90%, but I think it holds up.
Yeah. Wow, okay. That's shocking. As somebody who saw it when it initially came out, I think it doesn't hold. It's not like a clear cut holds up. But you, as somebody who's watching it for the first time ever 15 years later, says it's a for sure holds up.
Yeah.
Well, that's why this podcast exists. Because you can get both people who've seen it before and people watching it for the first time. That's incredible. Then that's it. Any last thoughts you have on Slumdog Millionaire? I almost said Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Do you have any thoughts on that? Here, do you have any thoughts on the movie and or that game show?
Thoughts on that game show? I'm kind of glad it's not really a thing anymore. And about Slumdog Millionaire, go watch it.
It is streaming on HBO Max
Yes.
currently, so you can definitely check it out. And in the meantime, keep watching movies.
Bye.